Welcome back to another episode of the Views from the 66 podcast, the podcast where we provide commentary on the world through the perspective of the 66 books of the Bible. If you're new here, I'm Eva.
I'm Paris.
PJ on this side.
And today we have a special guest, our good friend, who just came back from a mission trip, and she's going to share all about her mission trip and her experience. So introduce yourself, who you are, and what do you do?
Hey everyone, I'm Haley. I'm from Georgia. I've grown up in Georgia my whole life, and I just graduated from the University of Georgia in May. And then this summer I was on a mission trip. And this fall I'll be starting at medical school at Mercer University in Savannah, Georgia.
Yay! Okay.
Awesome.
So yeah.
But the first guest on
our
the
first
podcast.
guest.
Right? This is a historic moment for the Views from the 66 podcast. Yeah. So anyway, just wanted to highlight that. But let's get into it, right?
Yeah. Oh, we have an icebreaker.
Yeah.
Yes, I forgot about that. Okay, so we've all just been traveling lately. So, like, what is, like, a pro and a con for traveling? You guys' pros and cons. I didn't even think about this question.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Okay, I didn't, but now I have something.
Okay.
The biggest con, airplanes. No, not being an airplane, but TSA and everything.
Oh.
The liquids.
Oh,
yeah.
my gosh,
It gets me every
Liquids.
time.
Bro.
Fitting everything, that one thing. Oh my gosh. But then I didn't realize that I didn't need so much liquid.
Yeah, that's true.
I was like, oh, I didn't need all that toothpaste. I didn't need all that lotion. I brought multiple types of lotion for my body. I didn't need all that. Pro, you get to, I don't want to say escape reality, but have maybe a mindset shift, just seeing a different environment, exploring new places.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Anybody else?
Did you have something, Haley?
So for me, my con is definitely packing.
Oh.
I just can't stand packing or unpacking when you get home. I just feel like it takes so much time. And then I'm always worried that I'll forget something.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
I just get stressed out.
Yeah.
But I'm also with you on the liquids because I always forget, like, there's one bottle and then they have to open up my entire bag. And then, it's kind of annoying.
Delay.
Yeah.
What about a pro? Did you
Pro, I think kind of the same, like just getting to be somewhere different and explore, I don't know, just being away from your hometown for a little bit, whether it's just like a different state or even the city, or global. That's very cool too. So
Yeah.
just being somewhere new,
Yeah.
fresh air. So, what about you, Eva?
Me?
Yeah, you will.
Okay. I feel like I don't have a con. The pro, I love the views on the plane, like the clouds. It just makes you, I don't know, I guess it reminds you of like death. I don't know, like that our life is life and God is bigger than all this and we're gonna die soon and things like that. I don't know, it just gives you like a reality check. And then also pros, visiting new places and like y'all said, like the new experience. And then a con, I guess the before packing, because PJ and I started packing. Well, I started packing for us like 2 weeks before we left, because I feel like if I don't have things together, like I'll be in shambles. So I think that could be really stressful for me.
The planning.
Yeah, the planning.
Yeah. That's good points. I think I'm gonna have to cough. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, what the pro for me, I agree. I think everybody said like seeing new things. I agree with that. Like seeing God's creation, plane views. I love it. Right?
Yeah, I love the plane views.
It's like it shows you the I don't know how small we are really. Just how big this world, this universe. But then also for the con, I would say TSA, stuff like that. But another con would be the fact that, because I like sleeping in my own bed. I like the comfortability of being in your own place. And even when you go into a really nice place, you're staying in a hotel or whatever. There's something about when you come back home. It's like you long for home sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And if I could just take my home and just place it, that would be amazing, right? But I would say that would be a con. The fact that I can't take home with me, and I'm in somebody else's place. And so you just feel a little bit less comfortable. But yeah.
I feel that. Yeah. I feel that. But speaking of places, tell us where'd you go and who'd you stay with, what it looked like, where you stayed, and all that stuff.
Yeah, so this summer I was in Hiroshima, or some people say Hiroshima, Japan, for 8 weeks. So I was sent as an intern. There were 5 interns, and we were sent from our church, from school, which is Prince Avenue Baptist. And we were sent to serve the church in various different ways and to help with English classes every week for the Japanese. And so we stayed with a host family, and they're part of the church there. And so they were so awesome. They hosted us. They have a little baby, and he's 6 months old, so we got to be a part of that. And I hadn't been around like a little baby in so long, so it was so sweet just to get to see like what the kind of life that they're in right now. And this is only the second time being out of the country, so the whole, traveling, like we had 3 flights to get there.
Oh yeah.
And so it was just crazy. When I flew into Tokyo, I was by myself that time, and so when I got there, I was just like, what is going on? Because I can't read anything, and no one is speaking English. And so from the beginning, just arriving there, God was just like, you need to rely on me. And he provided for me over and over. But yeah, it was just the traveling process.
Because you only had an hour, right?
Yeah, I only had an hour.
From Tokyo to get on your next plane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was sweating. It was hot. Talking about hot. I was lugging all my bags.
3 flights.
3 flights,
separate flights.
So I flew up to New Jersey, and then from New Jersey to Tokyo.
Wow.
And then in Tokyo, you have about an hour flight to Hiroshima. And so in between Tokyo and Hiroshima, I had to do all the customs and immigration.
Oh, yes.
And it was just really hard because I couldn't read anything, and so I had to constantly ask people. But they were so helpful. So I was so thankful.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
How long was the flying? Like the time with all those flights?
Oh, okay.
It was
So
like 16 hours?
Yeah. So the first one was probably about an hour and a half, or maybe just an hour to New Jersey. Yeah. And then the one from New Jersey to Tokyo was 14 hours.
Oh my goodness.
I about died. And I was on the window seat, and I just hate making people get up. But you really have to make them get
14
up.
hours,
Because there's no room. And I had to go. I was holding it to go to the bathroom. So I only got up 2 times on that flight. But 14 hours. And the one from Tokyo to Hiroshima was like an hour.
Yeah.
So it was much shorter.
Yeah.
But it was crazy. When you get there and you're like, you don't even know what time it is. You're just so confused because it's like bright outside, but the whole time you're in the plane, all the windows are down.
That's true, yeah.
So you just
like a time machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. Yeah.
What?
Speaking of the jet lag, how did that work? How long did it take you to get acclimated to the new time zone?
Because they're 13 hours ahead.
Yes, 13. That's right.
Yeah.
13.
Yeah. So when I arrived in Japan, it actually was not too bad because I went to bed that night. I kind of had
you stayed up late.
Yeah, I stayed up late before I left. And so when I was on the 14-hour flight, I just slept the whole time, almost. And so when I got there, I felt rested. I was like, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And so getting adjusted, it wasn't too bad. I felt tired a little bit for the first few days. But when I came back home, oh my gosh.
Were you tired?
I was so tired. And I have not been able to, like last night, I couldn't even sleep until like 3, which is not like me. And so my body's having a hard time getting used to it again.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Have y'all ever had like a long flight like that before?
I have.
Yes, you've
Well,
been.
when I went to Europe, it was like 8 hours.
Okay.
But 8 hours is nothing compared to like 14 hours.
8 hours is still long. Anything like above 5 to me
It's
is
like,
Really?
long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I have.
You've been to Texas.
I've been to Texas, but that wasn't. I think they're Central Time or something. Yeah, I think they're Central, but I think that's
Some
what.
parts, I think.
Probably, because Texas is huge. But I don't remember it being difficult, being acclimated. But no, I can't. I mean, it was smart what you did. Going to sleep and then sleeping on the plane. Staying up late and then sleeping on the plane. That was smart. But yeah, that's. I don't know how I would do with that.
Okay, so I wanted to know about like the pastor.
Yes.
Who was he? Is he native Japanese, or is he from the U.S.?
That's a good question. So he is like half Japanese. So he actually grew up in Georgia.
Wow.
Ironic.
Yeah. So, well, crazy. He went to the University of Georgia.
Wow.
So he actually went to where I did my undergrad, and his home church was the church that I was a part of during college.
Wow.
So that's the connection.
Wow.
And the church is called Mustard Seed Christian Church, and it is it's basically under a network called Mustard Seed Network, and that's a network in Japan. And basically, their whole vision is to have 12 churches within the 12 largest cities in Japan. So the one I was at was Mustard Seed in Hiroshima. So that's like one of the largest cities in Japan. And so they have 8 churches so far, and by 2025, they're hoping to have 12. And they have staffing for 3 more, I believe. And so they have around 11 that they're in process of planning, and then there's 1 more that they are trying to get planted. So it's really cool. I didn't actually know much about the network until I got there. But the pastor, he's so energetic, so awesome. He was like such a joy to serve, just because he would just remind us constantly of just how great God is. And like what an honor. That's something I learned, like what an honor it is to serve God. Like God doesn't need us.
That's so true.
He can use anybody.
And like he doesn't need me, and like the fact that I got to be a part of that this summer was just an honor. And I think our pastor, he did a great job of just like exuding that, like the joy and just he had a humble heart. But yeah, so he went to the same university as me. And then one of his supporters is the church that I was a part of in college.
Okay,
awesome.
Yeah, so that's the church he also attended and was discipled in throughout college.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's like
a
a
really cool
full circle moment.
Yeah, full circle moment. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna ask, I have a question, because I know some of the photos you shared, like you had to do a lot of work there, and the pastor gave you like assignments for each of you guys. So I wanted you to share, like, because some people out there who want to be on a mission trip, like, what does it take? What do you do? You know. So what did you do?
So one of the things that they wanted to give us, kind of as honestly like a gift for serving, was they wanted to have us be discipled and trained in like different theology. So that wasn't really necessarily like a required part of it, but they wanted us to give us something back in returns for serving. And so we studied a lot of different like theology topics, including like the end time study. So that was like the first time I'd ever really done a deep dive into like eschatology. But one thing that was really helpful was we studied different religions in Japan, and so that was just very relevant. And so we each were assigned a different religion, and then we were presented at staff meeting. So I was assigned Buddhism, which is really common in Japan. And so learning about that, and just learning about there's no truth for them. There really is no reality if you believe in Buddhism. And it was interesting, like when we would learn these things in our like within staff meeting and share them, and then we could go out and have conversations with Japanese people about it. And so one of my friends, I asked her, I was like, what does your family believe in? Like, do you have it's very common for them to have like a family religion, because they want to honor their family. And so I asked one of my friends that, and she told me that she believes in their family is Buddhist and Shintoist, and they commonly believe in 2 or more religions, because they want to be accepting of everything. And so it's really hard
being
because
inclusive to religion.
Interesting.
Yeah, they are very they strive for peace, and so because of that, they want to accept all religions. And we all know, like, if you believe all, then you don't really believe. Because if you were to believe, you would know that they contradict each other.
Very true.
And so I asked her one time, I was like, what does your family believe? And when she told me, I was like, oh my gosh, I've just been studying Buddhism. And so I was like, what do you think about the Eightfold Pathway? And that's like these paths that they believe you have to take to reach nirvana. And it's a lot of things similar to maybe the 10 Commandments, but different. Just like sins and things that you shouldn't do. And so I asked her about that, and she didn't even know like what they were. And so that was really eye-opener to me, that a lot of times like they just believe what their family believes, but they don't know for themselves. And the benefit of that is that they're so open to learning about Jesus because they really don't hold really tightly to anything. Like, they're so open to, like, they don't even know who Jesus is. I mean, 1% of Japan are Christians, and so the vast majority of people in Japan, either they're Buddhists and Shintoists and maybe not strong to that, or just no religion, and most of them are content with that. And so kind of like I know I just rambled a little bit, but like to go back to your question, like, it was really just so awesome that we got to have that training from our pastor, because I felt like when we learned about like culture things in Japan, we could really go out and like speak on it. Because like you come from America and like we don't know much about this, because most of us know of Jesus. We heard about Jesus growing up, and so I think it was really hard for me to shape my mindset and my perspective a little bit, because I had to start from the beginning of they don't even know who Jesus is. And like that changed everything with conversation. And so it was awesome. We learned all types of things of just like religions, and we also learned different norms and things that happen in Japan. For example, like they strive sorry.
It's fine.
Like they strive to be perfect within their workplace, of like their workaholic is something that's just a big theme in Japan. And so it was really sad and heavy, but a lot of times like everything they do is centered around their work, and they feel like in order to be successful that they have to be like constantly getting achievements within their workplace. And I feel like I can relate with that as being someone that wants to go in the medical field, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, we just learned a lot of different terms, like, and the words that are common for them, such as, like, they have a hard time with sometimes socialization, and so there's, like, a period of life where sometimes they'll withdraw from everyone. And so they'll be in their house for years, and we researched, like, there's, like, one man who, like, stayed in his home, in his room for 7 years, and he wouldn't leave because he lost all motivation.
Wow, that's crazy.
And so it's just really sad and heavy, and I think a lot of that stems from them having no purpose. Like
no hope.
Yeah, no hope. So just learning that through our staff meetings and just on our own was really heavy, but also helpful, because then we could really like understand where they're coming from.
So it kind of reminds me of like in the US, the stigma around like Asian kids, like you know how the Asian kids, like the parents are like, you have to grow up and be a doctor, and then like the Asian kids, they get the best grades, like they work, like they have to be the best. So I can kind of see.
I want to say something too, because speaking of the work mentality that a lot of the culture is centered around, I saw in you were in one of your pictures that you sent that I wanted you to speak of it, basically how I forget what it's called, but it's the idea that in that culture a lot of jobs.
The tanshin.
Yeah, can you explain that idea?
Yeah, that makes me so happy that you saw that. Yeah, so that was the word that I was assigned to research. We each had like a word or phrase, and so mine was tan shin funin. And it basically is when a husband, because of work, he leaves his family, and if he has children, leaves his children behind, and he'll move to a new city, and this could be within Japan or it could be globally, and he leaves his family because of his work assigning him to a new location. And so I researched that, and like we kind of also looked at like what does the Bible say about that, because it's a huge problem in Japan, not only for the husband but of course for the family, because they're left on their own, and he's still providing of course because he's working for them, but there's no father figure in the house to raise up the children. And so we it's really heavy just learning about that. And also too, for the husband, it's not really good for him either, because he would move to a new city and then become very lonely. And so that's a big problem that, and of course there's no purpose or greater meaning behind what he's doing besides just the success and the pursuit of that. And so he's by himself just working super hard. I actually read some articles that talk about their diet and like their nutrition goes down because they're not taking care of themselves, and they're just working. And so Tanshin Funin is when the husband leaves his family, and it could be for many years.
Wow.
And the hardest thing about it too is that they don't really have a say in it. And so, like, when their company asks them to do it, it's not like, hey, is this convenient for you to move location? They basically say, like, if you want your job, you need to move. And so, because of just the workplace and just the kind of the work industry in Japan, if you have a job, like, you want to hold on to it, and you don't want to lose your job because it might be hard to get another one. And so the husband really feels forced. I mean, you always have a choice, right? But the husband feels forced to provide for his family, and you don't want to be looked down upon for quitting or getting fired from your job. And so he will leave. And so, it was really, I never knew that was a thing. You know, we always, like, you know, people sometimes growing up, like, their husband or their fathers would, like, go and travel for work, but then come back. But that's not how it is in Japan. They move, and there's actually apartments that are made just for this situation.
Crazy.
But just for one, why doesn't the family, like, move with the husband?
I was, like, wondering that too. But I think sometimes it comes down to the schooling, because, you know, they do want their kids to do really well in school, and so they don't want to pick up their kid and move and have to, you know, start over in new school. And then also elderly, like, if they have their parents, they want the wife to be home to take care. So just a lot of different factors that go into it. But Tanshin Funin, it's very common.
That's very interesting. You know, the interesting thing about it is because, you know, my view of Japan is, you know, it's a small, you know, island, and Japan is a nation, right? It's a small island, but it's so congested. You know, everything's so congested. So the fact that you're talking of loneliness, you know, and just the culture and you know, the men going away and they suffer from loneliness is so crazy to me, because it just shows the fact that just because you're surrounded with people, you know, all around you, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, you feel noticed, that you feel, you know, like you know people, you know.
That doesn't mean there's real community.
Right, it doesn't mean that. Fascinating though. Wow.
I would say, like, going off of that, the loneliness is so real there, and walking around, you can just see the heaviness on their faces. They don't really smile, which I think is part of their culture, but also, like, they're just exhausted. They work, I mean, most people work, like, 60-hour weeks, and they are really, I mean, they are working way too hard for things that will never satisfy them. And so they are walking around sad, and when you're there, like, for me, like, you know, I feel like when you're around your friends at home, you're calmly joyful and you're enjoying life, but being there, something about that, and walking around and seeing that was so hard for me. There are times where I would go up to the roof of our apartment that we were staying at, and I would just cry because I felt so burdened for them. Because it's like, we have the answer to give them. And so we know how they can have real joy and real peace. And so it was really hard for me, because I just, like, really felt burdened for them, and just, like, even sometimes I felt lonely because it's of the language barrier. Of, like, I want to, like, build a relationship with you, but it's so hard when you can't speak the language. And so learning how to work around that was really hard too. But like, they really need Jesus, and they are just so lonely. It's just really sad.
I'm so sorry. I have two things.
Okay, so we're here then.
Right, because first, I'm going to say these two things and then expand upon them, because first, you're talking about the language barrier. I want to talk about that and how you worked around it. But then also, I'm curious how, I gotta remember the second thing. You're talking about, this happens a lot. You're talking about the city. The
loneliness. Right,
the loneliness. We were talking about, man, because I really wanted to touch on that point. Oh, my goodness. I'm so
Just
sorry.
say the first point.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the language, because you were talking about, you know, it was difficult to communicate and things. How did you work around that? You know, and were there a lot of English speakers? You know, how was the community? You know, just I'm curious.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was so hard at first. Like when I first got there, the next day we had our first English class where. Really anyone of all ages could come. So we sometimes would see people like 5 years old come, and then we also had a guy, he was retired, and he would come. And pretty quickly on, I realized like the way I was communicating with them was just not going to work because, you know, in America and here when I'm talking with my friends, I talk super fast and naturally we kind of use slang, and I caught myself keep saying y'all, and when I would say that, they had no idea what I was saying. And you could just see this dazed look on their face. And so kind of the first week or so, I was really struggling, just like, I don't feel like I can do this. You know, of course I can, it's God through me, but I just was like, how am I supposed to, like, my heart for going was to build a relationship with them, and I was like, how can I build a relationship with them if I can't even like speak with them? And so we thankfully, like, during our staff like training and meeting, like, we talked about how to communicate some with them. Those that came to our English class, they could speak pretty good English. Like, you can definitely have a conversation. It's just when I was talking with them, you would slow down, really slow down, be careful what words. So I tried to be careful, and you know, over time I would notice what words were kind of like troubling for them. But one thing that helped too was just gaining their trust through being an idiot and asking them to teach me Japanese. So I would ask them like to teach me how to say different phrases, and you know, of course, like, my pronunciation was like terrible, and so they would like laugh at me, but I would laugh at myself, and so they could see, oh, she's willing to embarrass herself to get to know me and my culture. And that really just, I felt like we connected on that, because if you think about it, I mean, they were coming to an English class where everyone, you know, all of the interns, we all speak English fluently. So like, it'd be like for us if we all go to a class where we are going to practice maybe Italian or something, everybody in that class speaks Italian fluently, like that's their language, and you're new, and you're gonna, you might sound wrong with how you say things, and for them, they don't have a lot of opportunities to practice English unless their work requires it. And so you know, we would have people come and be like, I'm so nervous, and they would tell that to me, and it's like, I'm like, it's okay, you don't have to be nervous, but like trying to show them that they don't have to be nervous instead of just saying don't be nervous, because they can't help it that they're nervous. And so I think asking them about their passions, like, and caring about what they care about, is that really built trust.
What is interesting to me is the fact that you said, I think it was 1% Christians, or
1% Christians,
right? And it's heavily influenced with Buddhism. That was really striking to me, because normally what I'm saying is that one might not automatically think of Japan as a country so developed like Japan to be a missionary, right? They might look at, you know, some less developed nation,
like Africa,
right, somewhere in Africa or something like that, right?
To be in the mission field,
right? To be in the mission field, right? You know, you got to go through the jungles and all that kind of stuff to be a missionary. You know, but it's like, you know, it's. I guess what I'm saying is that everyone needs the gospel, you know, and you cannot think that a more developed nation like Japan is in a better position spiritually or something like that because they're more developed or something like that. Because oftentimes it could be your riches that keep you from God. So I guess to ask a question, what I'm saying is, how was the conversations that, you know, in speaking to people, understanding that they did not. Many didn't even know of Jesus, right? The difference between going to America and to find out, you know, people are, you know, really biblically ignorant in a sense, right? Not to be, you know, disrespectful, but they're just not knowing, right? So I guess what I'm asking is, how would you have those conversations, and how would you, what did you find, you know, the best methods, I guess? But what do you say about that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think it depending on who I was speaking to. I found the best methods were the one-on-one, hanging out with people. So kind of one of my roles, we each had a different role within the church, and my role was kind of the outreach and follow-up person, and so I was kind of just kind of leading that and planning outreach events. So one thing about Japan is they love karaoke. Like, they are obsessed with it. And I had never gone to like a karaoke event before, but they actually have like like businesses that are karaoke places.
Yeah.
Like you go and you get a room and you can like sing, and
Yeah.
they
Wow.
love them some karaoke. I mean, they'll do it every day
Wow.
if they can. So we planned a few karaoke events.
Okay.
We really tried to like plan things that were kind of reaching them, and so. But I say that because those were large events, and so we would, you know, depending on the event, maybe 15 or 20 people would come, and it's really hard to have gospel conversations right at those events. I mean, sometimes we did, and that was a blessing, but really the deep conversations came from the one-on-ones, and so when we planned those events, when we were there, we were, of course, very intentional. Like, we want to make sure we're directing these conversations in a specific way. You know, we don't want to waste our time. And so one thing that I try to do was when I was at those events, be like, hey, we should hang out sometime and do this. And so building a connection, and they use an app called Line. It's sort of like WhatsApp.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, so they use that. That's kind of how they text people. So I'd be like, hey, can I add you online? And then
Online. That's
online.
Pretty cool.
But
I got that.
it's the app.
Right,
It's
right,
not
right.
online, because I got confused as well. And so I would add, you know, after I was talking to them, I would ask them. And the one thing that was hard is it had to be me to initiate. They wouldn't initiate to hang out with me. It would always come from me. But usually when I asked them, they were super, super willing, because they don't say no. In Japan, it's very impolite to say no.
Like people pleasers naturally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people pleasers. So they might make up an excuse, be like, oh, like I'm so busy with work, and that's their polite way of saying no, thank you. And like the word for it's okay is daijobu desu.
Daijobu desu.
Yeah, daijobu. But so good. And so commonly, like if you know someone's gonna ask you, oh, can I do this for you, or if you want to do something, or you know, do you want a bag and you don't want it, you can't say no, but you can say daijobu desu, and like that means it's okay, thank you.
That's
I'm sorry, I want to interject. You
interesting.
said that word means no?
It means
No,
it's okay.
it's okay.
It's okay.
They
So
can't say
Interesting.
no.
It's
Okay,
like
right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's basically how you can say no without saying no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes they would use that, and that was like a word you commonly say. Like almost every day, I would say it many times.
Did you ever say no?
No. I mean, I would be like, I guess before I learned the word, I would just be like, no, but thank you. Because I didn't know any better. But
That's so funny.
What's the Japanese word for no?
it's like, oh gosh, I think it's like EA or something.
Okay.
EA, I don't know. You don't even hear it.
Oh, wow.
because
Is it
my
for, like-
pronunciation's so bad, but it's like IE, I think. Or,
Okay.
yeah, something like that. But yeah, you don't even hear people say it.
That shows you that you don't, I mean,
It's like a bad word.
Yeah, it's
Right.
a bad word. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
yeah, anyway, so I would ask them to hang out. And then, you know, one thing I try to do that I mentioned earlier was just to do something that they care about. So the first time I planned something with my friend, her name was Arisa, and she loves to like be fit and to work out, and so she loves Pilates. And so I was like trying to show that, you know, I care about what you care about, and so I was like, I want to try Pilates with you. So I went to a Japanese Pilates class, had no idea what was going on. It's also one of the ones where you use a wooden board to like slide back and
The
forth.
reformer.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and so the whole class was taught in Japanese, and I looked like an idiot the whole time because the instructor, they have two. One of them walks around the class. So she'd walk up to me and just, you know, fix my form.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But it was through those like times where I was hanging out, either before we did something, during or after, you know, being so intentional. And I think one thing I did was praying before I met with them, like, God, will you please help me to ask good questions? And when you ask questions like, hey, what do you think about like when you die, or what does your family believe, or like what's your purpose for being here in Japan, like what are your dreams, like asking questions instead of like, oh, like what's your favorite ice cream, you know, things that like that's cool, but also
The
like
deep question.
the deep questions, like we're not promised tomorrow. And that was one thing that from the beginning of my summer to the end, I really prayed that God would help me to just steward my time well. I was like, I'm only here 2 months. I don't want to waste any opportunity. And so hanging out with people as much as I could without being drained, that was the other thing to balance. Like, am I making sure that I'm being spiritually like fed myself before I pour out? And towards the end of the summer, I started feeling a little burnt out because I was going. And so I had to learn how to say no to some things.
Yeah.
And that was a hard thing because I also don't like to say no. But yeah, I think just being intentional and kind of gauging where they're at, because some people we met like had no religion experience, and then others had, you know, maybe a little bit of knowledge, and so it really depended. But so different than America, because like you have to start from like literally the ground of like, can I share with you my faith and share with you who Jesus is, because that's not even a common knowledge to me. So.
Wow,
that's crazy.
I have another question.
Go ahead, ask me the question.
I have another question. So again, going back to Buddhism, I'm wondering, like, did you see like a lot of like temples or like the influence of the religion in the city a lot?
Yes and no. They have temples, you know, around, but they're not very prominent. And I think that goes, you know, along the lines also with they don't really know their religion. And so they would go into them, but it's not very, I think it depends on the family, of course, but it's not something that is talked about. But if you mention it, they'll be like, oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Interesting.
But,
That's fair.
you know, they would go in and they'll pay for blessing. So, for example, there's one for their car. They will spend, I don't remember exactly how the current, like, the exchange would be, but, I mean, it would be at least probably $1,000 American dollars to buy a blessing for the safety of your car.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So, yeah, they would, you know, buy a lot of things, but there's really no meaning to it.
Wow.
So it's hard.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because...
Go ahead.
I was gonna say my mom, she, I guess every Laos New Year's, they actually have a temple here in Georgia. Like, she'll go to the Buddhist temple, but she doesn't believe in it. Or so she says, but she doesn't follow things like that, but she'll still like go there. I don't know, maybe it's like a respect thing to kind of show up for your culture in a way. But yeah, I noticed that in hearing this, it's almost like it's like at least that they can say that they have something, you know, at least they can say, you know, well, yes, I might not follow it, I might not understand all the tenets of this religion, but you know, yes, I am a Buddhist. You know, it's like almost that they can say that they have a God, or in a way, you know, that at least on their side, because like you said, that was really telling, the fact that they pay for blessings. So it's like, you know, at least let me ascribe to a certain religion, so at least I can have, you know, the blessings of God on my side. Or I don't know, this is a conjecture, right? But I'm just trying to understand from what you're saying. But this is interesting. Yeah.
I mean, that is so, y'all are right on with that, because it's a shame honor. So like here we are like guilt versus innocence. That's kind of like our culture. But there it's shame versus honor. So it's all about honoring your family and where you come from. And so if it's going to honor your family to go to the temple, you're going to do that because you don't want to be, you know, cast out from society, or you don't want to, you know, anything bad. Reputation is so important. Like, they don't want their family to look bad. They don't want to look bad. You are constantly worried about what other people think of you.
Yeah.
And so much so, one thing we learned early on, which I didn't realize how true it would be until, you know, we saw it. But, like, let's say you're in, like, a circle with people, and for America, like, in Americans, we love to have, like, hot takes, you know, for example, like, Chick-fil-A versus Zaxby's. Like, we'll sit around and talk about that for, like, way too long, probably, like, 30 minutes, like, debating it. You know, we all have our things that we'll do. They don't do that. They actually, like, I've seen them listen to some of us do that and be, like, so confused, because they debating those kinds of things, they just don't, you know, they're striving for peace. But if they ask you for your opinion on something, like, let's say, or we ask them, like, oh, what's your favorite color, you know, for example, let's say we're gonna just do that. The first person in the line is gonna say, my favorite color is blue. So that then the next person, they are so concerned with their reputation, they're not gonna say what their favorite color is. They'll say, yeah, I think blue is pretty nice too. And so they'll say that. That might not even be their favorite color. And it will keep going down the line. And I watched that happen.
Really?
Because
that's wow.
when the pastor told us, I was like, there's no way. Like, something as simple as your color, your restaurant, or food, like, you'll just say your own thing. But they go along with what the crowd says. And so when I did see people not do that, it was very surprising, because you were just expecting them to go along with the crowd. But yeah, they are so shame and honor. Like, it's all about, like, do people think that I'm awesome? I want to be the best. And if they're not the best, they're gonna keep striving, which is so sad, because we all know, like,
you can't be the best.
We can't be the best. Simply, we just can't.
We are.
This is very interesting, because when it comes to the shame and honor thing, you know, it's like because to honor the parents is the first commandment with a promise. So we are to honor our parents, but then Jesus also says that whoever does not love father and mother more than me is not worthy to be my disciple. So it's like they're honoring to a fault in a sense, because when you honor your parents to the point that I'm going to ascribe to this religion that you want in order to bring honor to my parents, it's like at that point that's where it goes too far. So it's like it's very interesting. It's a very different culture over there, I see.
Yeah.
Wow.
They have high morals, but with the wrong frame.
Yeah.
Which is really sad. Because they're really, like, respectful and kind and courteous. Like, when I came back here, like, we flew into Chicago, and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot how rude people are.
Yes.
Chicago.
Absolutely.
But in Japan, like,
absolutely.
they are so kind. They get you gifts. Like, when you go to their, like, they are just so compassionate and caring. Like, they have a lot of really awesome characteristics and morals.
Yeah.
But then, like, it's just sad because they're not, like, the God's not the center of them. It's me. How can I look good? And so they're going to be super nice to you, but it's all for them. It's not
their
for
heart
God.
is in the wrong place.
Oh my goodness, it's like that. This show called Black Mirror. It's not a good show. Don't go and watch it. They have different episodes, and one episode is about this society where you have a phone and you give each other likes. So basically, you can buy a car, you can buy food, you can get into these certain places depending on how high your rating is. And so if you accidentally spill coffee on a person, then your rating goes down. So it's kind of like the society is like the Japanese culture that constantly approving your rating to be liked.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
and that's totally different from what we see here. The honoring, I mean, we don't see that.
No.
Much disrespect.
It's all about being different here.
Absolutely.
Set your own trends. Like, be different.
That's so true.
They're like, that was another thing. They all dress the same, and they all wear. I mean, they're very conservative, like nation, but even within that, they don't wear colors, which might be shocking. I mean, unless it's like a festival, they wear like black and white.
It's very muted.
Yeah, it's very muted. They don't want to stand out. Nobody wants to stand out. And so it was kind of weird because, like, as an American, like, we are automatically look so different. We were respectful of, what they like to wear. We did honor that because, like, we're in their place. We should be respectful. But seeing them all look the same, everyone acts the same. It's just like, we're all the same. There's no, like, you don't be different. Like, if you're different, people are like, you're so weird for that. Yeah, it was
like a sore thumb sticking out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a thought about, because you were talking about how you, like, appease their culture to trust them. It just made me think of, because we were talking about this at church, about this 1 Corinthians passage about Paul when he says, like, he became a servant for all to, like, win all. Is that how
he
it goes?
became like all in order to win all.
He became like all to win all. So that just reminded me.
Yeah, 100%. That what you guys did was 100% in order to reach. That was great.
Yeah. I did have something I wanted you to bring up, but I don't know if you want to bring up about Marina. Do you want to?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so apparently, I've learned. Hey, you made a friend.
Yes.
I just want you to tell how you, because I felt like it was just God ordained how she showed up in your life, and, like, and her family structure and things like that, and her faith, and just talk about her. I want to hear about her.
Yeah, so I made a friend this summer named Marina, and she's so awesome, and it was really, like, as Eva was saying, orchestrated by God. He made it so our paths would cross, which is really just so special. She is 19 years old, and she came from Sendai, Japan, which is about 2 hours from Hiroshima, where we were. And she wants to be a doctor, which is crazy because, like, that's what I feel like God's called me to do. And so she wasn't supposed to be in Hiroshima, actually. She had taken the exam to enter medical school, and she unfortunately didn't pass it, and so she kind of had to you have to take a different route in Japan if you don't pass that exam. And so she was trying to get into a university. Well, she ends up in a university in Hiroshima. There was an open spot that also wasn't supposed to be there. And so God allowed her to get into this university, and her friend that she met through this university, that friend's father is friends with our pastor. And
Wow.
so her friend brought her to our English class. And that night when she came, it was just, I mean, I really felt like God told me I needed to go talk to her. Of course, we talked to, you know, everyone that comes, but I just felt like something was like different. And so I had met her friend first, and I was just talking to her. Her English was so good. I was kind of surprised. I was like, well, this is interesting. Your English is amazing. And she said she brought a friend. And I was like, well, who's your friend? And she points over to this girl. I mean, she was just like this little, she's so sweet. She's so small, so joyful, like a little angel. And I just look over, and she's standing there, and I was like, I need to go talk to her. And so I went up to talk to her, and you know, I find out that she wants to be a doctor, and she's just so sweet, and I just was like, I want to hang out with her. And so I asked her, hey, can I add you online? And then we exchanged contact information, and I texted her. So then we hung out for the first time, and that's when I kind of got to know more about her, that she has a really hard like family and like relationship back in home at Sendai. And so her mom says to be a Christian, but they don't really go to church or anything. And she's had, her father is not a believer, but she's had people pour into her life growing up, but she's also experienced a lot of hardship. Her grandparents were killed in a tsunami in Sendai in, I think, 2011. So,
wow.
Like, she was old enough to remember that. And her dad went through a really hard, like, mental health state because he lost his parents. And so that was really hard on their family. And so there's just a lot of darkness in her family. And she also was bullied a lot. And it was really emotional because I felt like I could relate with her, because that was something that I experienced growing up, was just being bullied. And so felt like that was something that God allowed me to kind of like speak on some. And so when I hung out with her that first day, we started talking about faith, and just, she had been to church but never really, consistently, or she had never really read the Bible before. She didn't have her own Bible. And so just prayed over her that first time that I hung out with her, and she was just crying, and I mean, it made me want to cry, just like everything that she's gone through. And so that Sunday she came to church for the first time, and we got her a Bible, and she told the pastor that she wanted to live for God, and she wanted to really be a Christian. I think she had already I think she'd become a Christian in the past, but just it was not a personal walk for her. And so we continued hanging out. We started doing a Bible study together. They had a bilingual, so Japanese and English Bible study that we did. We studied who is God, who is Jesus, what does it mean to be baptized. So special, because she would read the Japanese and I would read the English. And that was the first time I've ever done anything like that. Learning to be very slow. I had to slow down when I was talking with her. And she asked really good questions, like, why could a good God allow bad things? So we had a lot of theology.
Famous question.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about things like that. We talked, she's super smart. I mean, so smart. And so our first time hanging out was June 7th, and then she was baptized actually on July 7th.
Wow.
So it was just really special.
Yeah.
July 7th. 7th, number of completion.
Yeah, number of completion.
Wow.
And her mom, we were praying for her. Her mom came to her
she
baptism.
did come.
She did come. She traveled, I think she took a plane from Sendai.
Wow.
She took a plane.
Yeah. So,
wow.
Oh, that's the other thing. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but it's really not common to drive. Having a license is special in Japan.
Really?
People fail the exam many times.
What?
There's some Americans that need to fail, by the way.
No, actually. So we had a friend come to our English class, and he was like, "Yeah, I failed my exam 2 times already."
Wow.
It's
Is that hard?
It's really hard.
Wow.
Man, we need to up the standards here, man.
I know, we need to lower
Bro.
standards, but they have so much public transportation.
Yeah.
And most people, because like what you said, it's very compact and efficient, so most people walk. That's another reason why they are so healthy.
Yeah.
Because they walk everywhere, they eat really well, they bike a lot.
Okay.
So they're really cool because they're so fit, and then, comparing that to America was just interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
But yeah, so Marina, Been texting her since I've been back. Hopefully, her goal is to come to America to be a doctor one day.
Really?
So,
oh my goodness.
it would be so awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. It was really hard leaving her.
I bet.
Just like.
But she's in good hands.
Yeah,
Definitely.
mean, the church is pouring into her.
That's good.
Just so thankful that God allowed all those hard things, because I think if she hadn't failed the exam, she might not have moved.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I pray, like, she had many people, like, plant seeds in her life, but I think she just needed an extra push. And God was orchestrating everything perfectly.
Oh my goodness, I want to cry.
Yeah, he's so good. He reminds you, like, he hasn't forgotten about you, you know?
Yeah. And actually, one thing, I just want to share this verse.
Please do.
She shared it. She gave her testimony right before she got baptized, and it was really special. It was a bilingual moment where she gave it, and then we had a translator. But one thing that she shared was Isaiah 43:4, which is, "Because you are precious in my eyes and honored, and I love you. I give men in return for you, peoples in exchange for your life."
Wow.
Bro, I love that.
And so it talks about. Yeah, this verse a lot of Japanese use in their testimonies if they become Christian, because it talks about how we don't have to worry about others' opinions, because God says we are precious in His eyes. And the word for that in Japan is hitome, which is others' eyes. And so, constantly worried about what other people think. But this verse, like, we are precious in His eyes. Like, He loves us. And, like, that's something that she shared in her testimony, and something that just getting to see that in them and learn, even for myself, it's a reminder that I need, that I am precious in God's eyes. And, like, the creator of the universe, He deems me good, and He loves me. And, like, just, like, feeling that burden of, like, wanting them to feel that He loves them. That He wants them to be. Like, they'd be like, I don't want to come to church because I'm not a Christian. They would say that all the time.
Wow.
They would feel the shame of, I'm not a Christian, I can't take part of your church. And we would always say, like, no, church is for everyone. We want you to come. And we want you to come and learn who Jesus is. So,
amen.
Let me, I love that verse. And it's funny that you brought it up, because we were talking about something or whatever, and this verse came up. I don't know. Even I were talking about something, and this verse came up. And, so I just, the fact that you brought it up, I love that. We are precious in God's eyes. Such a good point. I also want to say something. You were talking about earlier in the podcast, you were talking about, I'm paraphrasing, but you were talking about basically the honor of being a servant, and the fact that God doesn't have to use us, but the fact that He chooses to use us, right? That we can partake in this activity with God. And, the fact that you know how everything lies. It's such a small world. It's like, this person went to the church, and it's such a small world, like, and how God works. And it's just so beautiful to hear. And also I want to say it's, even if it was for that one person, let's say God wanted you to go to Japan just for Marina, right? Just for Marina, it's like, that's a life, man. That's a life that changed, And the fact that you can partake in that, and bringing somebody to Christ and just showing the love of Christ is, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
We don't know who or what is on the other end of our yes.
Amen. We don't know.
It's an honor.
Yeah.
Like, that was one thing that God taught me, like, this summer. Is such an honor to be a part. Like what you say, like, He doesn't need me, and we don't know, and that's one thing, like, God can save anyone anytime. It's just like, are you willing to be obedient? There are situations where I might take a stand that my teammates might not have saw the same way. And it's hard to know in the situation if you're doing the right thing. But always just, like, praying to God to help me be obedient, and then if I see an opportunity, to seize it. If there's an opportunity to pray for the food, take that opportunity and pray for the food. And just, like, the little things, and being consistent, like, being intentional with them, to check in on them during the week, and just things like that. Like, you never know, like, and that's the thing I was thinking about, like, all the people that planted seeds in Marina's life before I met her. They didn't know that what was going to happen later on.
Yeah.
Yet they were still faithful and planted the seed. And that's my prayer for a lot of the people that we met, that they still need Jesus. And we didn't get to see that, but we're praying that that seed will continue. Yeah, so one of the biggest things was spiritual warfare. That was something that I really wrestled with. When I first got there, of course, a lot of what I struggled with were lies about, how am I supposed to build a relationship if I can't speak the language? But another thing that I wasn't expecting as much was spiritual warfare within myself, and then comparing myself to my teammates. And I guess I knew that might happen, but it was just really hard, especially when you're living with people. And I was so fortunate, like, our team was amazing. Like, we had so much fun together, and they really inspired me with just how much that they served, not only, like, our team, but just the people of Japan. But one thing that was just really hard was constantly striving, because you're trying to plan events to hang out with people and wanting to do all the things. And I think one thing that I had to learn was just to, like, rely on God, as we've already talked about, that it's not me, it's Him. And how to, like, take every thought captive and battle my mind, because I have the hardest time with that. Like, I will start to think about something like, oh my gosh, they probably think this about me. You know, honestly, like, I'm just like someone that lives in Japan. Like, I'm a people pleaser too. And so learning how to, like, take every thought and be like, is this really true? Like, is this coming from God's word? And so learning how to wrestle with that. And I think I prayed more this summer than I had in a while. I mean, when I walked places, I was constantly praying. Praying that God would help me, praying for my friends. Like, there was just endless people to pray for. Like, we had a list. Every staff meeting, I felt like our list was just growing. Like, you know, just people we met through church or, you know, throughout our days, and just, I don't know, being in constant, like, communion with God through prayer and scripture memory. That was something that I worked a lot on this summer, of treasuring, like, verses in my heart, so that when I was experiencing my insecurities and lies from the enemy, you know, because Satan just wants to distract and discourage. Like, he really works hard at doing that. And so I think memorizing verses really helped me, and being able to pray over those, and they would come to my mind. And then even with my team, something I try to work on was praying for them, praying for my teammates, and thinking the best of them, because I think when you're tired and, like, you're around your team, you tend to think the worst, or just be, you know, if you're annoyed at them for little things. And so one thing I try to do is pray for them and encourage them, and that really helped, like, spiritual warfare with them, because then I was like, oh my gosh, they're so amazing, like, I want to be like them, because I'm seeing all the best in them. And just all the different things, like fighting the lies with truth, and learning that, like, I'm doing the best that I can, and, like, God just wants my heart. He doesn't want all the numbers. Like, you know, like, as you said earlier, like, if it was just that one person, and I'm there at that time and doing what the Lord has asked me to do, then that is worth it completely. But yeah, I mean, that was just a little bit. But what about for y'all? I mean, have y'all ever felt a passion for missions, or, I don't know, did any of this kind of make you start thinking about if you might want to, or where you kind of stand on it?
That's a good question, man. That's a good question. I'll tell you what this did. It made me think about, you know, just living intentionally. That's the first thing that I start thinking about, right? It's just, you know, because you're talking about building relationships, you know, as a good way to basically to open up a place for the gospel to come in, you know, and to speak into people's lives. That's the first thing that I thought, you know, because basically, you know, it's because it's not like, you know, it's not like, it shouldn't be something that you turn off, right? Like your Christianity, or, you know, you should have a heart for people everywhere you go, you know, and, you know, that this does, you know, make me, you know, think on myself, and I guess prompting me to ask the questions like, you know, are you putting yourself out? Are you trying to build a relationship to, you know, to open up the gospel, you know? Because, you know, I'll say this too, you know, just, I think it was just yesterday or 2 days ago, one of my old friends, from one of my previous jobs. He called me, and he's a good guy because he'll call me. You know, normally it's him reaching out.
Yeah.
You know, really, he reaches out most of the time, but he called me. He's in the military now, and he calls me, and you know, he asks about the family sometimes. Asks about Eva, you know, but he's not a believer, you know. But I appreciate the fact that he's doing that, and you know, hearing this makes me think, because we had a conversation. It was like 30 minutes, and I was looking for like a gospel opportunity, you know, to talk about or whatever, you know, and you know, I didn't say anything, and I told Eva I felt like, you know, I should say something, because it's, you know, I know I'm talking a lot, but Eva and I have been having a lot of conversations about family members, reaching family members. You know, even Paris, you know, all of us really among ourselves, we've been having conversations about reaching family members and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, just hearing what you're, you know, hearing this Japan trip that you took, it's, I guess, making me think about actually putting action, you know, to things, you know, because there's people around me that, you know, I have not taken action, you know, I haven't said anything, you know, and you never know what, you know, like you said, Paris, you know, you never know what is on the other side of the yes, you know, you never know the kind of impact you might have on a person.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I think about, you know.
Yeah, I'll say something. Just you sharing your trip, I think it changed my perspective a lot of a missions trip, because people that I've known gone on a missions trip, it's just like VBS in another country, you know? And it's like, that's great and everything. Or maybe it's not even VBS, it's we're building a school or something like that. And that's amazing. But is it a Christian school? Like, what are we there, and are we saying we're Christians and we're trying to evangelize to people? Is that the goal? Or is it just to help education somewhere? You know, and that's amazing, but so that's what I've heard of in the past, and those are opportunities I've seen in the past to, you know, join the trip. And I'm like, I want to do more. Like, if I'm going to go, if we're going to raise up money, we're going to do all that, I want to do something like that, you know? Like, be really intentional. Like, we're here for a short amount of time. Let's get the game plan, you know?
Yeah. I'll just bring up something that I'll just confess something, because before going on mission trips, when I see like churches or, you know, showing like we're going to pay to go to Mexico, and it'll just like, in my mind, I'm just like, oh, I get to have a free vacation, or not a free vacation, but like I get to go on vacation. Well, also just, and then God's on the side, like, yeah, we'll do some Christian stuff, but no, I'm on vacation. And I feel like that's how I felt about it before, but after hearing you now, I wouldn't say that that's what I thought recently, but before, but hearing you now and like hearing the story about Marina, I feel like if I would ever go where that one person, like, I feel like, I don't know, that just touches me. Like, I wouldn't be able to go on a mission trip if I were to ever just to have that one person that I can impact. And I think I would just love to experience that, because I feel like I do have people in my life now, like a mentee, and I try to like pour into her and stuff like that, but you know, there's more people that I can pour into, young girls that I would love to pour into. And if it could be like in a country where Christianity is not even known that much, like, you plant the seed, God waters it, that person grows, and it's like they're sent on for their region, you know. And I find that so beautiful, because you don't know who they may impact. Like, Marina can, you know, you said she wanted to do things at her university and like do some Christian ministry and like things like that, like how you kind of, you know, was a catalyst for her, and now she's about to be like a catalyst for other people. And I just love seeing like the domino effect of us evangelizing and helping other people know the gospel. I like that. Good. I like that part. But yeah,
and I'll say this too, that it highlighted to me that, again, I already stated it, but it's the gospel isn't just needed in some, you know, forgotten place, you know, where people are wearing loincloths, you know. You know, just to be frank, I mean, the gospel isn't just needed there. That there are what's the word that I used before? There are Japan was a I wrote it down. It's a developed nation, right? That these developed nations need the gospel too, and just to hear the fact, just the total lack of knowledge of the truth, in a place where they have so much access to the internet, and things like that. That was really shocking to me, So I guess that opened my eyes too, and that these places need the gospel too.
Yes. I was just thinking about how in China, like the communist country, and how some people are Christians and they have to like hide and stuff. And like, I heard a pastor say, like, we talked about this before on the podcast about how these people, like, they would get thrown in prison and they would have people sneak in Bible verses. They would remember the whole like epistle of Paul in their brains, And I feel like when you go on a mission trip and you go to a nation like that, it reminds you, like, we're like we look like lazy Christians because it's like we can't even remember John 3:16. Can't we remember John 3:16? And I think
17.
I think that's what is a reality check. I think it's a nice reality check when you see going on mission trips like that. So every Christian should go on a mission trip. I mean, whether it be like in the next city,
Yeah, and that's the thing too that we all know. It's like just because I went to Japan, like America needs Jesus.
Oh yes,
so much,
so bad,
so much.
And like one thing that God made even clearer this summer was like, if you pray for an opportunity, He will give you one.
Yeah.
Because I prayed for one. I prayed for many, and there was even one day I was walking towards a cafe. And I was walking to go just do personal, like, Bible time. But for some reason, something in my heart was like, I don't feel drained right now. God, if you want to give me someone or something to do for you, I'm ready to do it. And I just remember exactly where I was walking. And I had my music in, and I was like, just praying to Him and saying, Lord, I'm not drained right now. I feel like I could do something. We had a staff meeting earlier that day, and normally, like, I feel like really drained after this because they're long. But I was walking, and suddenly, like a few minutes later, I just prayed that, and there was someone at the corner of my eye. I saw someone waving. And so I'm like, who is waving? Are they waving at me? And I look up, and it was Marina.
It was Marina,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
But this is early in, like, on our, like, friendship, and she was standing at an intersection. And Japan is, Hiroshima is huge.
Yeah, their intersections are like
they're giant. Yeah,
the walkways.
and the fact that we would run into each other.
That's crazy.
And I see her, and I'm like, oh, what are you doing? And she's coming home from university. She had class that morning. And she's walking home, and she asked me what I was doing. I was like, well, I was about to go read my Bible and, like, just study it. And she's like, well, I want to come with you and read mine too. And so she went home, and I was like, well, you can come, like, I thought she might need to do homework. You know? So I was like, well, if you want someone to be with you while you do your homework, you're welcome to come join me. She's like, no, I want to come read my Bible. And it was just cool. That night we got to have a lot of deeper conversations, and it just goes to show, like, it doesn't matter where you are, here, next city, Japan, like, if you want an opportunity and you pray, like, I believe God will give it to you if you're obedient and receptive to His word. And it's just like, it only takes, like, one small act of obedience. Like, as you said, like, she now at her university with her, like, the good news of the gospel, she can impact way more people than I could ever, because she can speak Japanese, and she knows the culture, she's grown up there, and she can connect with people way better than I could. And so it's like she can now disciple people.
That's true.
And
That's true.
it's like, already, going there and coming back, of course you don't want it to, like, stop, but just, like, having that perspective shift of, like, every day counts. Like, are we so busy that when we're at the grocery store, we can't have a conversation with someone? Like, that's convicting for me because I do it all the time. But, like, coming back and just being reminded of, like, why I'm here. I'm not here for me. Like, I'm here for Him.
Here to serve others.
Yeah, we're here to serve others.
What verse did you have?
One second. One second. No, because, one second, let me spell this right. Where is this found? I'm trying to figure out where he's. So okay, so I know that so I'm thinking about, because you're talking about Marina going, and
discipling other people.
Right, discipling other people. I want to bring up in the book of Acts chapter 8, it talks about the Ethiopian eunuch, and it says that this Ethiopian eunuch, he was a court official of Candace, the queen of the Ethiopians, who was in charge of all her treasure. And he had come to Jerusalem to worship, and he was returning, and then Philip went ahead and, under the unction of the Spirit, basically went ahead and spoke to this Ethiopian eunuch. And if you look at like the history of Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Bible is older than the King James Bible. What the King James, like in the 1600s, something like that. But it's older than the King James Bible, and Christianity really was really exploding, especially during that time, in the first century. And I say all this to say, basically, is my opinion that the Ethiopian eunuch had a big impact on that. And I believe that he took the gospel, took it back to Ethiopia, and that's why Christianity really flourished. And I'm just thinking about, like, Marina takes the gospel, she goes, and she talks to her other friends, and it's like this domino effect, So it's like, man, it I mean, who knows what could happen,
Yeah.
So anyway, it's good. And honestly, it's convicting, to be honest, because now I'm thinking about the friend. It's like, man, I should have said more. I was like, well, I told him I'm making a little album, so I was like, that's my witnessing,
Next time, ask him if you could pray for him.
Yeah, it's a good way to ask.
Yeah.
What would you pray for me for?
So,
but yeah, so yeah, we're gonna end it here. So thank you for being our first guest.
Did you have fun?
Yes, we had fun.
It was so
What
much
did you
fun.
think?
Y'all are so cool. I'm so honored to be here. So thanks for
Awesome.
having me.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Pleasure to have
You guys
you.
are
pleasure.
awesome.
Yeah, this was a good episode. If you want to come back on the podcast,
Yeah, definitely come
feel
back.
free.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, this was a good episode. Thank you guys for watching. What do we want them to put in the chat?
I don't know.
the Japanese flag.
Sure.
The flag-
I don't know what the Japanese flag looks like.
Oh, it's like white with red.
Yeah.
White, that's it.
If you guys made it this far in the episode, put the
Drop where you want to go travel to, since we don't know.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drop
Put a
where you
flag
want
of
to
the
go.
country.
Yep.
Put a flag down in the chat. So.